It's now live, Councillor Smythe.
Thank you, Anna. Good afternoon. I'm Judith Smythe, Councillor and Vice Chair of the Planning Committee, and I'll be chairing today's virtual Planning Committee in the absence of the Chair, Councillor David Fuller. I welcome everybody. We're meeting virtually in response to the limitations placed on governance by the COVID-19 pandemic. This meeting is being broadcast to enable the press and public to view the meeting. The officer will, first thing we're going to do is to make a decision about the new definitive map, and then after that we will go on to applications. The officer will present the application, read any written deputations received, and confirm the recommendation for debate. To facilitate this meeting, I've exercised my discretion in accordance with the Constitution and suspended Standing Order 41A, and I'm allowing debate of items before a formal motion is made to the committee. Before we start, I would like to suggest that we ask Donna Jones to be my deputy just for the purpose of this meeting, because sometimes we have internet difficulties, and if I'm cut off or worse, then it would be good if the meeting could continue. Councillor Jones, are you happy to do that?
Yes, happy to accept, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed for your help. Members are reminded to keep their videos on at all times and indicate if they need to leave the proceedings at any point. Members are requested to keep their microphones on, mute, and only to turn these on when they're called to speak. This will limit the amount of background noise. Officers are requested to turn their cameras on only when they're presenting their reports or answering questions. Members of the committee who wish to speak in the debate should use the chat facility and simply write RTS, request to speak, and don't use the chat facility for anything else, because it'll confuse me and it'd be inappropriate in this meeting. Officers will use the chat function if they need to advise us and to advise me specifically if I need to ask for advice for us. If there are technical difficulties or I need to take need to take confidential advice, we'll try to resolve these and where necessary have a brief adjournment. So I'll now explain the running order for this meeting. First of all, members will declare any interest, receive an update on planning matters, agree the minutes of the previous meeting, agree about the very important definitive map that it will form a large part of our agenda today, and amend standing orders for deputations. And then members will move on to the applications that we have before us. Is that clear? So I'd now like Lee. You need to unmute, Lee.
Thank you so much for that. So just before the meeting, I raised the matter of the application at Twyford Avenue, and I know that Eze is going to talk about it later on, but on the grounds that Mrs. Cobb, who is an important...
We'll deal with that later. We'll deal with it later.
Then, fine.
I think it's better.
Fine.
Thank you very much indeed. I won't forget, but remind me if I do. Okay, I'd now like to invite members to introduce themselves. Can you please reply by stating your name and saying present, and whether you're attending as a full committee member or as a standing deputy. I'll pause for a few seconds between calling each member. Those who are not able to confirm their presence will be recorded as absent from the meeting. I call first on Councillor Matthew Atkins.
Councillor Matthew Atkins, I'm a full member of the Planning Committee and I'm present.
Thank you. Councillor Chris Atwell.
Chris Atwell, present chair, I'm a full committee member.
Councillor Lee Hunt.
Yeah, present, being a full committee member on and off for about 20 years.
Councillor Donna Jones.
Yeah, Councillor Donna Jones, present, and I'm a full committee member.
Councillor Terry Norton.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Terry Norton, present, and I'm a full committee member.
Councillor Lynn Stagg.
Councillor Lynn Stagg, present, full committee member.
Councillor Luke Stubbs.
Councillor Luke Stubbs, present, and I'm also a full committee member.
Welcome, thank you. Councillor Claire Udy.
Councillor Claire Udy, and I am a full committee member.
Now I'm going to move on to officers to confirm their present.
Chair, I am a standing deputy.
Oh yes, Hugh Mason. Thank you so much, Councillor.
Councillor Hugh Mason, standing deputy for Councillor David Fuller.
Thank you. And now ask the officers they confirm that they're present. Eze Ekalido.
Thanks, Chair. Present.
Simon Turner, Development Management Lead.
Thank you, Chair. Present.
Rebecca Altman, Principal Planning Officer.
Thank you. Yep, I'm present.
Jermaine Asabere, Senior Planning Officer.
Unfortunately, Jermaine is not present today.
Okay, thank you. Matthew Garrett, Planning Officer.
Thank you, Chair. Present.
Thank you. Juliet Gill, Planning Legal Advisor.
Thank you, Chair. Present.
Kieran Levan, Planning Legal Advisor.
Kieran's not present as I'm here, so.
Okay, thank you. Harry Goodchild, Map Review Manager for Hampshire County Council.
Thank you, Chair. Present.
Peter Haywood, Highway and Transport Consultants.
Hello, yes, I'm here.
Andrew DeMarca, Senior Active Travel Officer.
Thank you, Chair. Present.
Anna Martin, Local Democracy Officer.
Present.
Anybody else from officers present that are not on my list?
None, sir. None, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. The first item is apologies. Are there any apologies, Anna?
There's a Councillor David Fuller who's being represented by Councillor Hugh Mason, but I haven't heard of any others.
Thank you very much. I'm going to move on to agenda item number 2, declarations of member interests. Do any members have declarations they would like to make? Please state both the type of interest, prejudicial or pecuniary, and the nature of the interest and the item it refers to. Councillor Jones.
Chair, I've had a conversation with Ian Maguire, the Deputy Director of Planning and Regeneration, and I'm anticipating an application being withdrawn or deferred. If that is the case, I probably don't need to make that declaration right now. But if it's not, then I need to make it, and it's around Debenham. So I don't know whether or not it's appropriate, whether I could maybe defer to our solicitor for me to get advice on that.
You can, that's fine.
Thank you, Chair. The item is on the agenda, so declarations will need to be made now. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. Then, in which case, through you, the applicant for the Debenham site has been directly in contact with both me and Councillor Steve Pitt, the Deputy Leader of the Council, on several occasions over the last couple of weeks about ongoing issues with regards to the application itself. Whilst I have no personal or prejudicial interest in the site, and I have made it declared to Ian, Eze and others that both Councillor Pitt and I have been directly contacted, and both Councillor Pitt and I have taken part in a wider meeting about the site with Ian and Eze as well last Friday morning, with Councillor Luke Stubbs also in attendance, which I think will lead to potentially a proposal for deferral today, I'm anticipating. But yeah, so no personal prejudicial, but I was advised by Ian that I really should, declare that I had been contacted.
I was contacted too, but refused the invitation to attend the meeting.
Councillor Donna Jones, provided you still have an open mind to any decision that you're going to make and that you've got no bias on the application, you'll be fine to participate.
Thank you, Juliet.
Councillor Stubbs.
Thank you, Chairman. On the same matter, so as Councillor Jones intimated, I was at a meeting with officers where some of the matters of this planning application were discussed. I have also spoken directly to the applicant, although he contacted me, and that was really about matters of process. It was about the time it was taken to process rather than the planning merits of the application. So I don't believe that it in any way prevents me from voting.
Thank you. Councillor Mason.
Thank you. I too have been contacted by the potential developers of the Debenham site, and I have also been contacted by objectors to that proposal. I believe I have an open mind on the matter, and so I do not believe that I have a declarable interest.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Are there any other declarations of interest? Good.
Oh, sorry, Chair, I'm having trouble with my computer. I received an email as well, but I did not engage with that, so I do not have an interest.
Thank you, Councillor Atwell. Now move to agenda item 3, to consider the minutes of the previous meeting. The recommendation is that the minutes be approved as a correct record to be signed by the chair, which will be Councillor Fuller when he returns. Do I have a proposer for the recommendation?
Happy to propose, Chair. Oh, sorry, or second, whatever.
Councillor Hunt, will you propose? Councillor Jones, will you second, please?
Yeah, that's no problem. Thank you.
Can I ask for all those in favour to raise their hands on the screen on this incident? Is that all right?
No, raising. You're not going to be able to see everyone raising hands.
I actually have got everybody on the screen. That's okay. All right. Then can we do it by assent? If there are no objections, we will assume that they're approved. Are there any objections? Is that okay, Juliet?
Yes, that's fine. Thank you,
Chair. Approved by assent. Thank you very much. The minutes of the previous meeting have therefore been approved. Are there any particular matters arising that people want to raise that are not otherwise covered?
You mean on the previous minutes?
Yes. No. Okay, thank you. I'll move on. We're now moving to the next item, agenda item 4, which is the updates of planning applications. Mr. Ekalida, do you have any information for us?
Yes, Chair, I do. Thank you, Chair. We have we received 7 appeal decisions. Of these, there are 6 appeal decisions that have gone the council's way, and we've got 1 appeal that was allowed. We've also received 2 appeals that are pending with the planning inspectorate for refusals decisions by the local planning authority. One would be for an advert consent appeal, and one would be for a householder appeal. I appreciate members who we are quite late with regards to full council yesterday, but there's 1 appeal I would want to draw members' attention to, which went the council's way, which would be the land at Enterprise House, Brunei Road in Portsmouth, which was for a construction of 10-story multi-purpose built student halls of residence. One of the key points there that we can pick out from there was that the planning inspector had considered that a 12 to 13 meter setback from the adjacent existing tower block was not sufficient setback, and that could have would have an adverse impact on future occupiers of the current of the proposal and of those of the existing building. Furthermore, the points that of the bulk height and the siting or the positioning of the buildings was also taken into consideration, including the street scene. So that would be something that officers would draw lessons from in considering city centre applications and other applications as they go forward. Thank you. Sorry, I can't hear you.
Councillor Hunt, any questions?
Yes, it's not so much a question. It's just that, like, I'm sure we've all read the various appeal decisions which have been sent out to us. In fact, it was around about 10 years ago I started, we never used to see these on the planning committee, or at the start of the planning committee, and I thought that we were missing out on good information. So it was I think it's about a decade ago we started to do this, and I think it's very helpful. I would also point out that we've had a number of appeal decisions around HMOs, communal areas, room sizes and so on, and the planning inspector has in the main agreed with the decisions of the local planning authority. So I mean, it's a good thing. We've driven the standards of HMOs up in an attempt to remove the stigma, and it's not an easy ride at all, but I think we have stuck to our guns, and sometimes members are a bit cautious. They talk about, oh, what if this goes off to appeal? Well, we've got some good results behind us now. So I hope we'll have the strength of character to continue to stick up for the future intended occupiers and indeed people around. That's it. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Councillor Stubbs, I'll take you next. Next time, if you could put RTS, that would be helpful.
Thank you. Yeah, sorry, I've got a few computer problems here, so I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do that. I'll see when we go forward. The point I want to raise actually isn't really related to that, but I need to get it in before we get to the first application. Because I can't access my main computer at the moment, having to use a personal device, I don't have access to the Supplementary Matters list. And I wonder if I could request that one of the officers send that to me to my private email address. Thank you.
Yes, that would be good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Matthew Atkins.
I'll leave it to Eze's discretion, but I just wondered if it was worth him updating us with any thoughts on the application that we lost at the planning inspectorate, the one that did succeed on appeal, and just why it succeeded on appeal. And also, actually, if you had any comments on Councillor Hunt's comments about us being relatively successful on HMOs at the moment. I'm just curious to hear his thoughts on both those points.
Okay. Eze?
Yes, Councillor. I'm just pulling up that sheet for me to just go through. Yes, it's the one that we lost was on 66 Margate Road in Southsea. The planning inspector did not agree with the local planning authority that there will be adverse impact on living conditions for future occupiers having regard to the communal living space provision, because even though that was at 5.78 square meters shortfall, the inspector believed that the overall floor area of the accommodation of the HMO was far and above what we have stated in our SPD, and gave great weight to that. And it's one that it's a fine balancing act here. If it is that amount of shortfall, there's that concern that would there be enough space, but the inspector looked in the respective rooms and felt that there was quite generous bedrooms floor areas for future occupiers, and thought that would compensate for the shortfall in the communal living space, which does lead to a fair and reasonable decision. Then the other one that we had go our way was that the inspectorate had believed that the space was not sufficient at all, and this had to do with the overall floor area of the HMO, and that was for 74 Jesse Road in Southsea.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Thank you.
Councillor Hunt.
So you're muted.
I think Luke Stubbs also raised his hand as well, but very briefly to follow on from Eze there. Sorry, Luke, I thought you did. On these, where the costs are involved, am I right in remembering that the planning inspectors refused to award costs against the council on the grounds that it was a fine balancing act, and we'd come up with a reasonable argument, and when we do that, we are protected on the whole?
You are correct, Councillor Hunt. The planning inspectors would always refuse cost award applications if the council had reached a reasonable decision following a due process and were specific on the reasons for refusal. And that's why it's very important to go through the due process and ensure that the reasons are quite specific. Yes.
Yeah, sure, that's great. And I know that the planning committee is a big learning curve, and I've become aware, so long as we are reasonable and the arguments and the cases are well made, that even if we refuse on a fine balance, where there's a fine balance, we should still, or we could still do it. All right, because when people start talking about costs and everything out of appeals and everything, I don't think we should do it. But anyway, thank you all very much indeed for tolerating this.
Thank you very much. I am then now going to move on to the next item, the substantive item on the agenda, agenda item 5. It's the reconstitution of the definitive map and statement, which will be introduced by Kieran Levan, Planning Legal Advisor, with assistance from Harry Goodchild, the Map Review Manager for Hampshire County Council, and Andrew DeMarco, Senior Active Travel Officer for Portsmouth City Council. Now, a number of us went to a very interesting briefing about the definitive map, and a few of us had an interesting conversation about it in the briefing for this meeting. And I just think it is the most sterling piece of work. And before they start, I'd like to acknowledge the enormous amount of work and the interest. And there are some simply fascinating things inside the huge report we've got. Councillor Hunt, before we start?
Yes, I'm terribly sorry, and I know we talked about this previously, but I wouldn't want members of the public to be sat here watching this if later on they learn some of the things that we're going to talk about may not be talked about. So I was wondering whether or not, if items are going to be deferred, whether you might talk about that now quickly, Madam Chairman, rather than have people just sat here watching us and then get cross because we didn't tell them at the beginning.
I second that proposal as well.
I'm very happy to go ahead with that. It's a balancing act between keeping these gentlemen waiting when they've come just for this item and doing that. Do I have is the feeling of the meeting we should go ahead with the planning applications? All of them?
No. No, Madam Chairman. So we talked earlier on about 251, 253 Twyford Avenue. Juliet Gill will be able to explain, I'm sure, but standing orders haven't been followed through properly there in relation to.
Let's do all the planning applications because there's only one other one and we'll do them all. Everybody happy with that? Izzy, have you got all the officers you need to do that?
Yeah, it's not that. I just don't want people to sit here.
It's a good suggestion. Okay. We've all agreed it. Let's move then, scroll right the way down through this massive other report. And we need to move to the planning applications. And the first planning application is Portsmouth Hospital. And I would look to Rebecca Altman to
Chair, can I propose that we defer application 7, 8 and 9 if that's what's going to happen, because we could still spend a good 20 minutes, half an hour discussing the hospital application. It's quite a big one. The presentation itself is probably likely to be a good 10 minutes.
To do all the applications at the same time. And
well, if I've got a seconder for my proposal, Councillor Hunt, that would be quite useful.
I second that, absolutely. Sorry.
Right. Okay.
Sorry, members. Do you want to include 253, number 10 as well?
Yes.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, for the reasons we discussed earlier.
So we'll start then with the application for Handleys for the Debenhams application. Eze, are you going to present this to us and talk to us about the proposed deferral?
Thanks, Chair. We received a request yesterday, I believe, via email from the applicants who had sought a deferral of their applications till the 27th of January Planning Committee, 2021 Planning Committee. They've sent last-minute revisions, which the Council has received, but it's not reviewed nor accepted them as part of the current application. The applicants would want the application, the revised schemes, to be put to public scrutiny and for officers to carry out a formal assessment of it to be able to advise members on their recommendation.
Are we all we're all happy with that? We accept that and look forward to receiving the application at the January meeting. Second of all, then, Councillor Mason.
You'll need to ask each of the members how they're voting, Chair.
Do we need to vote on a deferral when the applicant has offered us one?
Yes. The decision is with the committee.
Okay. So I would like to move that we accept the deferral. And I will go
be proposed by Donna and seconded by me, Chair.
Yes, I'm happy to formally propose the deferral.
Okay. So if you support deferring the application, going along with the applicant's wishes, then you would need to say that you agree and don't agree the other way around, or want to abstain. So I call on Councillor Matthew Atkins.
I'm for the motion for deferral.
Thank you. Councillor Atwell.
For.
Councillor Lee Hunt.
For the deferral.
Councillor Donna Jones.
For the deferral.
Councillor Terry Norton. Terry Norton, are you there? Final call for Terry Norton. You were here. I saw your picture earlier. I'll have to mark him as not being here then. Councillor Lindstag.
For the motion, for the deferral.
Councillor Luke Stubbs.
For.
Thank you. And I'll cast my own vote as the chair, and I'm for a deferral too.
Hello. Sorry, Chair, I'm dropping in and out. Apologies. Did I miss that?
I think, were you here for the debate about this, the discussion about this? Are you aware what we're voting on?
Yes, I was. As we came to the vote, I dropped out.
Okay. Are you for or against the deferral?
For, please.
Thank you.
Chair. And as the Secretary, I am in favour of the deferral.
Hugh.
For the deferral.
Thank you.
And Claire.
Claire Udy.
Thank you. Yeah, for. Thanks.
Is that everybody? Okay. Juliet, do I have? Can you confirm the result of that, please?
Well, that was unanimous, Chair.
Yeah.
In favour.
So we've unanimously decided to agree to defer the application until the next. Good. Can I move on then to the items, both of the two Twyford Avenue properties? Again, as I have a proposal from you, which I think has it been agreed with the applicant to defer this application because of lack of opportunity for the deputies to,
there's already a proposition from Councillor Jones and I to defer it.
Good. Thank you.
Chairman, sorry, can I just ask a quick question? Because I'm not aware of any of the debate around this issue. Now, I know I've got an impression Councillor Hunt knows quite a bit about this. I don't, so I wonder if it might be helpful, well, it would be helpful for me, maybe for others, just a few words of commentary on why deferral is proposed from the officers.
Who do I ask, Eze? Which in your team is going to give this?
Chair, I would ask Juliet Gill, our legal advisor, to.
Okay, Juliet, please.
Good afternoon, members. One of the residents that made representations in objection to the application has not been notified that she is able to make further deputations. Standing Order 24 of the revised standing orders for the coronavirus require the council to send written notification to the individuals. The individual has not received this written notification and has therefore not been able to make her deputations. So therefore, we've not followed our procedures that we are supposed to follow.
So we have a proposer, Councillor Hunt, and a seconder, Donna Jones, that we should defer this application to January as well, in order that the deputation can be properly heard. Can I go through and ask for a vote for that or against that, or any abstentions? Okay, so I call on Councillor Hugh Mason first.
I'm for the deferral.
Thank you. Councillor Matthew Atkins.
For the deferral.
Councillor Chris Atwell.
For.
Councillor Lee Hunt.
For the deferral. Thank you.
Councillor Donna Jones.
For the deferral.
Councillor Terry Norton.
For the deferral, please.
Thank you. Councillor Lynn Stagg.
For the deferral.
Councillor Luke Stubbs.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Claire Udy.
For.
And I'm for the deferral as well. So we unanimously agreed that we will defer these two planning applications for consideration in January after the deputations have been properly presented. Okay. Is it your wish that I now return to the substantive item on the definitive map? Yes?
Thank you.
I'll give you a moment to scroll back all that way. I think I introduced this before and was just in the point of saying what a splendid piece of work this is and how very useful it'll be and how very necessary. Could I then ask Kieran to get started, or Harry or Andrew, whoever it is that's going to introduce this to us?
Thank you, Chair. Andrew DeMarco, Senior Active Travel Officer, I'll be bringing this forward. So the report here being brought forward recommends that approval be given for sealing of a legal event modification order found in Appendix A and the new definitive map and statement for Portsmouth found in Appendix B and C respectively. As a background, a definitive map and statement is produced by a local authority to ensure clear representation and protection of designated public rights of way. As the surveying authority, there's a statutory duty to produce and continuously review said definitive map and statement as outlined in the Wildlife and Countryside Act 1981. All surveying authorities must have a copy of their definitive map and statement ready for public inspection, as this definitive map and statement acts as evidence during any public rights of way orders in which existence of public rights of way are in dispute. Currently, further to an ongoing definitive map modification order application, and whilst reviewing any documentation or the documentation that we have required for submission to the Secretary of State, it became apparent that Portsmouth City Council do not hold a sealed definitive map and statement, only unverifiable copies. And with any definitive map modification order that gets submitted to the Secretary of State, it must be accompanied by said definitive map and statement for examination. So at this stage, the decision was taken when it was found that we had only unverifiable copies. The decision was taken to reconstitute and republish the Portsmouth definitive map and statement. And in order to do so, an audit was undertaken regarding the public rights of way network in Portsmouth. This identified and confirmed a definitive map modification order recording 100 rights of way on the definitive map and statement in 2003, along with an additional 3 paths that have been recorded by way of legal order since that date. A consultation was also held between the 3rd of December 2018 and the 27th of January 2019 to determine user interface with the Portsmouth Public Rights of Way network and the accuracy of the definitive map and statement. This confirmed the 103 routes identified, but also noted additional routes which were intended to be recorded by way of public path creation orders after the map and statement have been sealed. After this stage, legal advice was sought from Hampshire County Council to determine the next steps in order to proceed with the republication of the definitive map and statement. And Hampshire County Council established that a legal event modification order would be required to formalise the events recorded by previous orders, and this process would therefore reconstitute the definitive map and statement of the 103 routes previously recognised. The reason for our recommendation is, as highlighted, Portsmouth City Council have previously held a definitive map and statement and recorded rights of way via legal process. There is a requirement to hold a sealed version in order to provide conclusive evidence of rights of way in Portsmouth. And in order to publish a new map and statement following its loss, approval is sought for the legal event modification order to be sealed. Thank you.
Chair, can I just...
Are there any questions or comments from anybody? Councillor Jones, is Councillor Jones.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just a quick question really for Juliet, if that's okay. First of all, Chair, I agree with you that this is a fantastically interesting piece of work when you have a look through it, actually. So we're almost quite lucky that we've had the benefit of having, all of this information to come before us. But Juliet, this normally things that concern rights of way would be a matter for the Cabinet and not for the Planning Committee. But I appreciate this is slightly different in that it needs to become a sealed version of on behalf of the Council's records. But I just wondered if you could explain to us the parts of the City Constitution that mean that it come before us and not before the Cabinet as it normally would do, or is it maybe going to Cabinet as well? I don't know.
No, it's not going to Cabinet. What I might do is actually defer to Harry Goodchild, who advised on this, if he's able to assist.
Unfortunately, I can't, I'm afraid, Juliet. My involvement hasn't strayed into those areas. Possibly my colleague Caroline Stickland from Hampshire County Council might have given some advice on this, but I wasn't involved, unfortunately.
We're fortunate enough to have Councillor Mason here substituting for Councillor Fuller, but he is also the Cabinet spokesman for this portfolio. Do you have any knowledge, Councillor Mason? And you also asked to speak.
I don't have knowledge, I'm afraid, of the process from here on to make this a council document. I assume that what we would need to do is to send the report from this committee to a future meeting of full council to be endorsed. I need to be corrected on that, but
can I please have the response from Caroline Goodchild then, please, to my original question before we move on to another, if that's okay?
Yeah, of course.
Shall I just come in? Sorry. The council took advice from Hampshire County Council, and they looked into the right constitutional way for taking this matter, and it was the Planning Committee. There's no need to refer it because it's a legal event modification order. I think that's why it's come to the Planning Committee. If I can find the piece of advice, I will have a look for it, but I can't guarantee I'll find it.
I would imagine,
but it is in line with our constitution.
It's just obviously, Juliet, as you're aware, things to do with the local plan and any modifications to the adopted local plan or anything to do with rights of way are normally a matter for the executive and, or as Councillor Mason has said, full council. I mean, look, if you're happy that this is the right forum for it, I don't want to object to that in any way. I just was wondering, wanting to understand the the legislation that empowered actually us as opposition councillors to agree what is actually a very important document for the authority. Normally it would be a matter reserved for the executive or as I said, full council. But if you're happy that this is the right place, then far be it from me to argue with that.
Thank
yes,
you, we should go on with our agreeing it, and then we should ask.
Can I just hear what Juliet was going to say there, please? Because I think she's going to come back on some of those legal points.
I was just going to confirm that it's been fully considered by the legal officer who was dealing with the matter. So that has been fully investigated. Yes, I can confirm that.
Right. Just to add to that, Chair, if I may cut in at this point, I've located an email from Kieran Lavin back in May, indicating that he'd discussed the matter with Peter Balfe, and they had taken the view that the Planning Committee was a proper forum. So it looks like that decision was taken by Portsmouth officers. I hope that helps.
I just remain very slightly worried on this and would ask you to go back and just double check, because it is a very legal document, and we don't want any future challenges, which would mean having to go around this loop again. But nevertheless, has anybody got any? Luke, Matthew Atkins, I have next.
I'm not sure Councillor Mason ever actually asked his question, and Councillor Stubbs did have his hand up as well, so I can defer to them if you like. I think
Councillor Stubbs. You were next on the list, Matthew.
Okay,
and then
sure.
I'll go back to you.
My question was just around the the piece of work that was done for this sealed plan. My understanding is that from what was said that we had a sealed plan, but that for some reason was lost. But we haven't lost the continuity of the plans in an unsealed version, have we? Has all the work been redone to fully re-verify the rights of way in Portsmouth for this sealed version, or does it largely rely on the existing plans that we didn't lose, if you like? We just lost the sealed version and so need to reproduce that.
So the previous versions were used as a point of reference, and obviously, as I mentioned, consultation took place for confirmation from members of the public and any interested parties to see whether or not the routes in question were deemed what the rights of way in the city. So the legal event modification order outlines 3 key events that took place. One event in 2003, which was the definitive map modification order for 100 routes, and then a further 3 routes that were added. So there's documentation to support those.
And if further routes needed to be added in the future, is there a process for that? Would the whole thing have to be redone?
So the definitive mapping statement is under continuous review, and applications through definitive map modification orders can be made to recognise a public right of way, and those can be applied for by members of the public.
Thank you.
Councillor Mason next, and then Councillor Stubbs.
My question was the second one, which Councillor Atkins asked about how we go forward from this in the future, so it's been answered.
Thank you. Councillor Stubbs.
Thank you. Firstly, it was sort of 2 related things really, because they're both related to the Canberra. So back in 2017, there was an application to create a new footpath around the Canberra. And I'm obviously just checking online. I mean, that went to the Cabinet Member for Traffic and Transportation in July 2017, and I believe his decision was to refuse it. And there were quite valid grounds for that about the operational use of the area. So that was the process taken for that application, and I do wonder a bit. I mean, I don't think this is a controversial document. I don't mind how it's agreed, but I just want to raise that. And then the other thing I'd like to ask is, I'm pretty sure that there is no designated route around the Canberra. I know residents were talking at that time about a legal challenge and so forth. I don't believe anything happened about that, but I just wondered if that could be confirmed.
So the definitive map modification order that was referred to during my presentation is related to the Canberra, and it's an ongoing application for a restricted byway. This is how we came to find out that the definitive map was unverified. So the process is, the application came in, and as you had mentioned, it was rejected. Then it would go to Secretary of State for review. We're at the stage of taking it to Secretary of State and they need the definitive map and statement to examine against, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Stagg first, and then Councillor Jones again.
I just wanted to ask, is there any harm in this going to full council? Because then you've got full council buy-in, and there'll be no future sort of, well, I know that there may be disagreements in the future, but, at least it would be a whole council thing. I don't see there's any harm in that happening.
Let's deal with that at the end of this item. I rather feel the same, because we don't want any doubts in the future about whether this is the one. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with the point you've just made, and I just would like it logged, if I can, please, through Democratic Services, that I don't feel comfortable. I don't think this is the right place at all. I think at the very least Councillor Mason is the cabinet member, and or if not, certainly the cabinet or full council. But anyway, it's before us today. I'm happy to vote on it. The advice we give from Juliet is that this has been considered and this is the right place. But I would query this outside of this meeting. But for the minutes, I'd like it minuted from me that this feels slightly odd to be before a committee that has no executive powers whatsoever. We are a quasi-judicial planning committee, and we have no other legal powers over the authority than that, certainly not when it comes to anything to do with the local plan itself as well. So it seems very odd to me.
Chair, can I come in?
Yes.
I've now found the advice that we received from Hampshire County Council. Would you like me to read it to you in relation to the Constitution?
Why Hampshire County Council's Constitution affects ours?
It relates to our Constitution. It's advice on our Constitution and how to proceed. Part 2 of the Constitution sets out decision making and the responsibilities and functions. Part 2, Section 1 states that one of the primary purposes of the Constitution is to make it clear where responsibilities for particular functions lie and which persons or bodies, councils or committee, cabinet make the decision. Excuse me. Part 2, Section 2 sets out the committee's responsibilities, and the planning committee functions are not only to planning matters under the Town and Country Planning and Development Controls specified in Schedule 1 to the local authorities' function and responsibilities, England Regulations 2000, but also include a subheading of highways and the functions relating to public rights of way as set out in Schedules to the Functions and Responsibilities Amendment Regulation 2001. Part 2, Section 2 further describes under the subsection highways, the highways' powers and duties, those of which are relevant include so therefore that sets out why it's come to this committee.
Chair, through you if I can. I think that's very useful. Thank you, Juliet. They say you learn something new every day. I have been on planning for 13 years and I have learned something new. So thank you for that.
Thank you. I hope we can minute this discussion, at least that it was raised and there was a concern, and it would then be up to the administration to decide whether they wanted to take it further in any event, even after we had approved it, I think.
Yes, sorry. It also includes the power to prepare map and statement by way of consolidation of definitive map and statement. That's listed separately. Okay.
Okay. Councillor Mason, are you happy with that being the spokesman on this subject?
I note that it is the legal advice. I take the advice of our lawyers.
Thank you very much. Good. Can I move on then to a vote on the motion that says somebody can propose and second it? We're asked to agree with the sealing of the legal event modification order for the reconstituted definitive map and statement in accordance with the recommendations on the report. Is somebody able to propose that and second it?
I'm happy to propose it.
Thank you, Councillor Stagg. Seconding it. Councillor Stubbs, are you going to second it?
I'm happy to second it, yes.
Thank you very much. I'll now go to the vote. So it's for or against or abstain. Can I start again with Councillor Hugh Mason?
I am for it.
Councillor Matthew Atkins?
For.
Councillor Atwell?
For.
Councillor Lee Hunt?
For.
Councillor Donna Jones?
For.
Councillor Terry Norton?
For.
Councillor Lynn Stagg?
For.
Councillor Luke Stubbs?
For.
Councillor Claire Udy?
For.
And I'll vote for too. Very exciting thing to have done, I think. So that we're unanimously for this, and I would like to take the opportunity to thank all those who've worked on this. And I encourage those who haven't looked at some of the details, have a little browse and perhaps walk on some of these paths that we've got in the city, as I intend to do with one or two that I'm not familiar with. So thank you very much. And nice job to have done, and thank you all very much for your hard work on this. Thank you. So we'll now move back to the planning permissions and start with the hospital one. If everybody's happy with that. Rebecca Altman, I think, was going to present it to us.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm going to share my screen now, so just bear with me and please let me know when you can see the presentation. Has that come up for people?
Yes, Rebecca.
Thank you. Okay. First of all, before I start the presentation, I think members will note that there is a supplementary matters that has been prepared. What I intend to do is talk through the points in the supplementary matters as I go through the presentation in the relevant parts. But you'll see that we've had a couple of further consultation comments, and most significantly, there's been some updates on the parking matters. So I will explain those as I go through. So the application relates to the North car park within the Queen Alexandra Hospital site. For those that know the site, there's two main entrances to the QA hospital, one from the south and two actually from Southwark Hill Road. The North car park is located on the northern side, as you would expect, and the application relates to the southern part of that car park, roughly outlined in the red rectangle there. You've got the main hospital complex to the south with the north entrance just to the south there. And to the west is the nearest residential properties in Boston Road and Peterborough Road. And then we've got the rehabilitation unit of the hospital directly to the east, and to the north is the energy centre and some other ancillary hospital buildings. Taken some photographs around the site just to walk you through it. So this first top left photograph is taken from outside the north entrance looking towards the north car park. You can see it's at a higher level to the main part of the hospital there, with a bank and a disabled access ramp and steps leading down. And this photograph just shows the access ramp as it currently is, looking towards the rehabilitation centre there. This photograph is then taken from the north car park, looking south towards the main hospital and the north entrance. And this photograph here shows the existing vehicle entrance to the north car park from Harvey Road. Then some more photographs of the car park itself. These two left-hand pictures are taken from the north side of the car park, looking into the car park, again towards the rehabilitation building. You can see again there's a levels change where the bank slopes up, but the application site is the southern side, and you can also see in these photographs there are some strips of grass and some trees within the car park at the moment, and then other trees around the boundaries. And then finally, the photograph in the bottom right-hand corner is looking from the car park to the west, and you can see some of the properties in Boston Road between the boundary trees there. And I would just say that these photographs were taken in September, so some of the trees may be more bare now, but you can see there's an intermittent views through. The application is for the construction of a new ward block at the hospital. This would be constructed on the southern side of what is the existing car park. You can see the main building here. It would house 72 bed spaces, which would comprise some 4-bed wards and some single-bed wards with ancillary offices. On the west-hand side of the building, there is an access ramp proposed, which would be for emergency in a case of a fire to get the beds out of the building. It is noted in the report that this is proposed as a temporary solution. Although not a current application, there are proposals in the future for a possible multi-storey car park to the north side of this building, in which case an emergency route would be linked to that, so you wouldn't need this ramp anymore. So you can see a small strip of landscaping here, which would be a garden, but again, that could be extended in the future if the ramp was removed. And then on the western side of the site is a service yard, which would house some generators and the refuse storage. The building is in terms of its construction, it's a modular construction, so it's a fairly standard rectangular shape. The proposal is to then clad the building in a range of cladding to match that of the main hospital building. So the north and south elevations would be a mixture of grey cladding with coloured elements around the windows, and the photographs below show the main buildings of the hospital, so it would be designed to match that. You can also see on this plan that there is a proposal to put some fencing and planting in front of the emergency ramp there to partially screen it. The east and west elevation are then shown to comprise a mix of terracotta cladding and grey cladding. And again, the photograph to the right there shows this is a material that's already used on the existing hospital, so it's designed to kind of blend in and complement that. And then you can see on the west side the bed emergency ramp here. Floor plans, sorry, that looks like a bit of a boggle, but it's as I said, a number of 4-bed wards along with single bed wards, and ground and first floor level with lift access on the eastern side of the building, and on the west side would be the link to the ramp. And then also on the east side of the building would be a direct access bridge across to the rehabilitation building. So I was explaining at the beginning that there's been quite a few updates on the parking matters, but I'll just go through the supplementary matters as a whole now. So you'll note that the consultation period expired last week. We received no public consultations. We received 2 more other consultations from departments. So one was from the Public Health Development Manager, which just goes through some notes on how the development has sought to consider wider public health benefits of the proposal, which includes the provision of disabled access, consideration of that throughout the design of the scheme, and pedestrian access, and generally improving mobility around the site. Natural England have also come back to us, raising the point that because the ward represents overnight accommodation in technical terms, there is the potential for an impact on the special protection areas due to nitrates. This matter has been addressed within the report. Just bear with me, refer to paragraphs 5.40 and 5.41. You will see that the local planning authority, as the competent authority on this matter, has considered that this scheme would not have a impact on the integrity of the SPA. In relation to parking then, there has been some liaison between the applicants and the council's highway consultant. Peter Hayward is also here if there are any queries on this matter. The main issue is that the ward block would result, when it's finished, in the loss of 121 parking spaces within the North Car Park. In order to mitigate that loss, the applicants have put forward a parking mitigation plan that would ensure that throughout the course of both the construction and when completed, there would be new public spaces made available within the hospital site to mitigate the loss within the North Car Park. And the way that they are achieving that is to reallocate a number of spaces within the existing multi-storey from staff spaces to public spaces, and the staff spaces would move to the park and ride, which I've shown here on this slide. So you can see the hospital site here. Many of the staff currently use a facility up at Fort Southwark Park and Ride, which is about 2.8 kilometres away, and a shuttle bus brings them to the hospital. The proposal would then be to relocate other staff to that park and ride to free up more space within the existing multi-storey for public. You can see on this slide again here that there's a total of 992 spaces within the park and ride, and the transport assessment determined that daily there can be between 390 and 442 available spaces, which is more than sufficient to meet the need for the relocated staff spaces. I also included a map here to show that the main residential streets surrounding the hospital are subject to restrictions on parking, which which prevents patient and visitor parking within surrounding streets anyway, and that wouldn't change. Sorry, can't get this in. So I've done a bit more of a summary here of the parking situation, just to try and break it down. The site overall is subject to restrictions on the amount of public and staff spaces it can have anyway from a previous planning permission, as explained within the report. But the North car park itself has 294 public car parking spaces plus 6 motorcycle spaces, and 121 of those car parking spaces would be lost. The ward block is estimated as a worst case scenario to result in a demand for 30 more public spaces and up to 46 staff car parking spaces, although this would certainly be a worst case because the applicants have explained that the ward, at least at first, is intended to be occupied by patients and staff from the existing hospital. And as I explained, the mitigation would be to move the staff spaces to public spaces within the multi-storey, which is on the south side of the hospital site, and re-provide those at the park and ride. So hopefully I've covered the main points there. The other relevant matters are addressed within the report, and you will see that the recommendation is for conditional permission, and you will note within the supplementary matters that the parking condition that was initially referred to in the report has now been simplified down to being in accordance with the parking impact mitigation plan that has been prepared and agreed with the council's highway engineer. And then there's a minor correction to condition 8, landscaping. Otherwise, the recommendation remains unchanged. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. We'll now move to questions from members to be directed to the planning officer. Any questions from members of the committee?
I've posted in chat. Councillor Hunt is ahead of me.
Yes, got it. Councillor Hunt.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Not easy doing it on the internet, I should imagine. I don't envy your job. Got to watch it all the screen. Anyway, Ms. Saltman, thank you very much indeed for the report. What I'm interested in is, very briefly, I mean, I use the hospital quite a lot. I have done anyway. And every time I go there, the multi-storey is underutilized. I don't know if that's because they know I'm coming, but there you go. But I generally, before the multi-storey, used to go straight up to the North car park because it was always so underused. And this concerns me that the car park, which we hear so much about parking, you know, there's always so much empty car parking space. So we're worrying ourselves to death over this. You know, have they actually done an investigation to see how much parking that they actually need? It seems to be a little bit sort of deep still, this reconfiguration that they're doing around parking, and that they seem to be doing a good job about how they are reconfiguring it and making it available for staff and people. But I'm interested to know if they've ever looked at what they actually need.
I would say yes, there have been and there has been a transport assessment prepared for this application, and I believe also for a wider future developments. There's also a lot of transport and highway parking assessments and work being undertaken as we speak, probably. But I think in terms of the availability, it has highlighted that there are available spaces at certain times of the day, at certain times of the week. I think at the moment it's to some extent by the pandemic situation, with encouraging less visitors. Well, there being not allowed less visitors being allowed to the hospital. But I mean, I think there is a general feeling that during peak times there can be issues with parking on this site, and therefore it is necessary to show how, with the loss of parking, it would be mitigated, which is what they've done.
Right, thank you very much indeed.
Peter Hayward has raised his hand. Do you want to answer this question further, Peter?
Sorry, Chair. Rebecca said exactly what I was going to say, just so I put my hand up. They have done some studies with some profiles, and show that generally the car park's underutilised, but there are some peak periods where it is at capacity.
Okay.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you very much. Then I would like to move to Councillor Matthew Atkins, please.
Thank you. I mean, I think it relates to parking again. I don't have any objections to the design or anything like that. It's a very useful asset for the hospital. But in terms of the parking, I'm slightly surprised that I suppose this is the applicant's choice.
Questions we're after here.
Yes, I know. I'm asking, is it the applicant's choice to split the multi-story car park application from the ward application itself? To me, they're quite inherently linked, and I would probably have liked to have considered them together. But if it's the applicant's choice, it's the applicant's choice. That's just asking why that hasn't come together.
I can answer that to an extent. The ward block is, if you see at the beginning of the report, is subject to a funding bid. So there was an urgency to get this one determined before other projects come forward. That's the main reason this one's come ahead.
Thank you. Is that okay? Councillor Stagg, questions?
Yes. I suppose it's really a comment, but I'll turn it into a question. Are the planners, the developers, aware of the fact that we as a council are working with it's John Knighton, I think it is, medical director, on the possibility of, in conjunction with Stagecoach, of developing a demand responsive transport system, which is a bespoke system, very similar to the way Uber operates, but both staff and patients can book trips in buses, not taxis, and they will pick you up at the end of your road. And I know one of our officers has been in contact with John Knighton, and so have I. I haven't had a reply from him yet, but I think this is something which should be worked in, with the planning. I have no objections to the planning application at all, but it worries me generally about the parking, the amount of vehicles on the road, and it would solve a lot of QA's problems, as well as our air quality problems. So do you know if they have been in contact with John Knighton and talking about this? Because I think it would solve a lot of the problems within this planning application.
Sorry, was the question whether the applicants are in contact with Paul Knighton?
Yes.
I can say that we have actually got a representative from the hospital with us if there is a question that you'd like answered specifically by them. I mean, my comment on this point would be that it's not something that I think is sort of fully worked through at the moment, so it hasn't been put forward as a kind of any sort of mitigation for this particular scheme, which is why it hasn't been referred to.
Well, can I ask that this is taken into consideration before it goes much further? Because I think it's important.
You mean for future developments at the hospital?
Well, to involve this as well, instead of having to move parking, you could have something that replaces the parking. I mean, it's in its early days, but what I'm asking is now getting in the ground floor to actually work with a company that is willing to provide a service which would solve a lot of the problems, be sensible rather than waiting.
You can obviously bring that back during the comments part of it, but I think the answer was that there isn't a formal awareness of that, but of course clearly it would help. The next one then is Councillor Hugh Mason.
I note that this new development will be linked by a bridge over a major road through the hospital to the main hospital. Is that bridge at a sufficient height that you could get a double-decker bus underneath?
That's a question that I haven't actually considered. I would have to measure the plan for you, which I could come back to if that would be helpful.
Okay, because it does strike me that since this bridge is going across the major road through the hospital, which is used by buses, if it were not at a height that the bus company could get a double-decker bus through, it would be too low.
I would say actually the bridge link isn't going over. Do you mean Nightingale Road?
Yeah.
No, sorry, the bridge link is here on the site plan. It goes to the west to the rehabilitation unit, not to the main hospital.
Okay, so it doesn't go. There is no. What is the link to the main hospital then? Is there?
There isn't one. I mean, it's the external link.
Should there be? Do you think?
Oh,
It strikes me as most unusual that you have a hospital here with an outlying ward with no covered link into the main hospital.
the rehabilitation centre is linked to the main hospital. So it would link to the rehabilitation centre and then to the main hospital. I'll see if my photograph shows it. Hang on a minute. There, you can see. So that's the rehabilitation centre there. That has an existing bridge link to the main hospital complex.
Yes.
And the new ward would then link through to the rehabilitation building here.
Okay. Right. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Councillor Norton, a question from you.
Yes, please. Thank you, Chair. Probably a question for Peter, actually, and just a quick one. Peter, you mentioned that the car park is often unutilised there. Can you provide us with some detail on the restrictions for staff using the parking facilities there? My understanding is that although the park and ride is utilised, lots of staff members park in surrounding residential streets. It's not like usual roads in the city where they're out during the day because, of course, NHS staff use work shifts. So in the evening, it has a bit of a disproportionate effect. So, you know, in terms of the car parking there, are staff, NHS staff, allowed to use the car parking that's on site? And if so, does it come at a cost?
There are quite a significant number of on-site staff parking permits. So getting towards 3,500 on-site staff parking permits that have been issued. They are issued in a ratio of 2.1 permits per parking space, which has been found to be the uptake on site. There are 220 spaces made available for staff in the park and ride. So there's plenty of scope to withdraw some of those staff on-site parking permits and reallocate those to the park and ride and free up the 220 spaces or a proportion of them in the multi-storey for staff. In terms of the on-street parking, Rebecca, can you flick up this slide showing the parking controls? Surrounding the hospital, we have those different controlled parking zones, and within those areas, it's resident permits only. So we are pretty well protected from staff parking on street within those areas. And I'd have to say I'm not aware of a problem of staff parking on street in that area. I'm comfortable that the mitigation strategy now proposed by the applicant is sensible, given the displacement that we're going to have for the construction period and also the longer loss, or the loss of parking in the longer term.
Thank you.
Thank you for your advice, Peter. Now I have Trevor Mose, Portsmouth Hospital rep, volunteering to respond. Did you want to say something to us, Trevor? And is it allowed that he does?
I believe that I'm allowed to by exception, but I'll look for somebody to give me the nod.
Good to see you. I think so far we're okay. Thank you, Councillor Matthew Atkins.
This would now be a comment, Chair. It wouldn't be a question.
Well, let me move on then to comments. I'll move to comments as long as there are no more questions. Comments then. Councillor Atkins, over to you. Comments now.
Thank you, Chair. So I was going to echo some of the things that Terry Norton said in his question. I wanted to say in my comments. My comments are that, I mean, this is an important building for the hospital. Expanded ward space is always valuable, and I'm sure it's down to the hospital to assess its best operational need for that ward space. And so I will be proposing the officer's recommendation today to allow this. my concern, and it's really one I almost want to address to my fellow members of the planning committee, is that when the application comes, and clearly the hospital needs this application now for funding reasons, and so it'd be a mistake not to grant it, I think. But when the application comes for the multi-storey car park, I do think we should consider that very seriously, because I do have a concern, and I think it's already reflected slightly in some of the comments of my colleagues on the committee, that application may encounter more hostility than the application for the ward, and I do think the two are inherently linked, and it's really down to the reasons that Councillor Norton was starting to outline. I do think parking does have the potential to be a problem. Now, I wonder to what extent the problem of parking in the surrounding streets, and because I canvass these streets a lot as ward councillor, there is concern, certainly even in the controlled zones, the concerns may be more related to visitors, but because they are sort of 1 to 2 hour spaces, followed by resident permanent only in most cases, they are difficult to police, the spaces in that area, because you have to arrive, you have to find the car without a permit, you have to watch it for 2 hours, 1 to 2 hours, then you can ticket it. So it's a difficult type of parking zone to police. So I do think there are definitely concerns from residents, particularly related to visitors who use the surrounding streets instead of the hospital car parks. And I do think there are also perhaps a smaller number of staff. There are concerns that come from just outside the parking zones as well. Mulberry Lane, the car park at the Caravan Park up on the hill, the Cliffdale Gardens sort of public car park for the use of Portsdown Hill is clearly used by either visitors or staff at times to access the hospital. Now, those concerns are not at a level where those residents want parking zones. I mean, obviously, the survey system can tell us that. But it is, the hospital parking does concern residents in these areas, and is one of the primary things I hear on the doorstep in this area. So I do think it's important that the hospital maintains enough parking on site to satisfy the need. Now, it may be that cost is what drives people not to use the actual hospital car parks and to try and use the surrounding streets, but I do think it's important, if this ward goes through, that the sufficient parking provision on site is provided elsewhere on site, and that's obviously not in the current mitigation strategy, but would potentially be provided by a future application to expand parking on site, either through a multi-storey there or somewhere else on the site. And I would just ask that the committee, for the sake of the residents in that area, would look favourably on a future application that is reasonable and within all grounds for further parking on site. So that was really my comment. I don't think you can ever fully replace on-site parking when people are in a rush, or if they have an emergency, or if they want to fit into a narrow window to see a sick relative. The convenience factor of parking on-site and using your own car is always going to mean those people that can't always plan ahead, that have emergencies, and it is an emergency building, do need to park close to where they're trying to get to. And so mitigation off-site is not always going to be satisfactory. I do so that is my concern, and it's a concern I just wanted to highlight with the application, and with the fact the multi-storey car park application isn't coming with the ward application. I think the ward itself is obviously good for the hospital, is obviously an important asset for the big hospital in our city, and so I'm happy to propose the officer's recommendations, but I do want to make clear that I am concerned at the loss of parking on site. And I do think at a hospital there is a value to on-site parking that can never be fully replaced. And I do want that borne in mind for the future. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Lee Hunt.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I have no hesitation at all in seconding the officer's recommendations with all the conditions and so on. I've listened very carefully to the parking mitigation strategy which Peter touched upon, and it seems very sensible to me that they're going to get staff to use a shuttle bus, which they're already doing at the moment. In the surrounding streets, we've got residence parking schemes which deter people from parking in residential streets. No doubt we will see extra car parking provided. Well, I listened to it all. They're going to re-provide the lost car parking spaces around the hospital grounds. From what I can make out, I did make an observation earlier on. I mean, I do go up there. I do have some issues I have to have seen to, and and dealt with. And there's never any problem with parking. Admittedly, I don't. Everybody wants to go in that car park right by the front door. That's where the problems come. That's where the queue comes. So, they sometimes tail back because everybody seems to head for that particular car park, and I don't know why. I sort of gesticulate them and say, them say, go park up in the north car park. I won't be able to do that anymore, I suppose. But we use the multi-story, and there's always spaces available there. I've never been there when there haven't been spaces available there, so I'm not overly concerned about that. I know residents are protected in the surrounding areas. Do you remember, one application I listened to this, and it was objected to the helicopter platform. I could believe it when local representatives came along and moaned about the noise that a helicopter was making, and there was local councillors really cross about it. If we've got to make a decision here between, the irony for me is, we've got very sick people, they need to be looked after. We're still talking about bloody parking. I know it's important, but surely the lives of people and sick people and the need for medical care far outweighs parking. But as it is, the application is looking after that for us too. So absolutely no hesitation whatsoever in wanting to see this built and quickly and see the QA become, well, it is already a very good hospital, a good regional hospital. So thanks to everybody in the NHS if they're looking in for all the work that they're doing for us on behalf of all of us. I know Matt would have said that, but I'm going to say it too. Thanks for looking after us and everything that everybody does at this terrible time, and always to make us better.
We're verging into non-planning reasons for approving it now, but I take it. Thank you for your seconding it. I've still got, I think, Councillor Lynn Stagg's hand up. Is that a legacy hand?
I thought I'd taken it down.
That's okay. I've got nobody else on my list doing RTS, but Luke Stubbs, is your hand up because I can't see your picture?
No, Chairman, I've no particular comment to make at this point.
Well, we've got a proposer and a seconder. Could you just confirm proposed by Councillor Matthew Atkins and seconded by Councillor Lee Hunt? And we're going to vote for this for, if you're willing to give it planning approval subject to the conditions on the report, and against if you don't want to do it or to abstain. So let me just go through the list. Councillor Hugh Mason.
In favour.
Thank you. Councillor Matthew Atkins.
For.
Councillor Chris Atwell.
For.
Councillor Lee Hunt.
Yes, for. Thank you, Madam.
Councillor Donna Jones.
For.
Councillor Terry Norton.
For.
Councillor Lynn Stagg.
For.
Councillor Luke Stubbs.
For.
Councillor Claire Udy.
For.
And I'm for it as well. You then have your planning permission, Trevor Mose, and can get on with getting the grant for the much needed facility. Thank you very much. I think, and I need to be guided. I need to be guided by an officer here because I can't look at my instructions and the papers at exactly the same time. I think we're now finished today, aren't we? There is no further applications.
Yes.
Is there any
We
other...
need to do our maps one, don't we?
We've done the maps, I believe. That's
Yes.
the right of way.
Did you want us to make a proposal to make sure it did go to full council? Was that what you wanted to do, or no? We've done that. I think are we done now, Juliet?
We are concluded. Oh, sorry, Chair. We've concluded, I believe, the items that are on the agenda.
Good. Are there any other business people want to raise?
Just to say thank you to all the officers again.
Indeed, I was about to do that. Thank you very much to all the officers and everybody else for supporting it, and thank you all for making it such a relatively smooth and easy meeting to chair. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you to everybody. See you in January.
I'll just close the live stream and it will take a couple of minutes, so you are still audible. So I'll let you know when it's finally finished.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely
Thanks,
Christmas
everybody.
if we don't see you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, councillors. Merry Christmas in advance.
Thanks, everybody.